Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Another episode of This Week in Wrestling History. As always, Ryan, Jacob.
Yo.
So this week we actually have something fun to review. We've decided that we may have had a few too many episodes of things that we were just kind of killing for a little bit, and we wanted to spare ourselves and everyone else us just ranting against something else.
Yeah, at least this one, there was more good than bad on this.
Yeah, I mean, every card is usually going to have a couple filler matches.
There was some bad.
There was some filler on this one, but
there was definitely more good that came out of this one.
Definitely. So, before we actually get into the main card, first things first, let's get our plugs in business out of the way here.
Twitter, WrestleHistPod.
Facebook, This Week in Wrestling History.
And we're on Google Play Music, iTunes, and Spotify.
And email us at wrestlinghistorypodcast@gmail.com for any feedback, questions, got any ideas for shows for us. We've been talking about doing maybe some like mini-series kind of thing in the near future here. We're still tossing that idea around. I like it.
Kind of like a career retrospect on certain
wrestlers. I think we'd kind of cover we'd kind of do like a 2-part or maybe 3 or 4-part episode, depending on how long they get, but kind of looking back at one person's career, kind of doing a kayfabe look and then a behind-the-scenes look, I guess, would be kind of our thinking.
Yeah. I think that would be a lot of fun, but you guys let us know. Shoot us an email.
If anyone has any interest in that, any thoughts on who we might want to cover for our first shot at something like that. Anyways, so this week we're going to be covering No Way Out 2000.
And like we said, there was definitely some filler on this, but everybody always talks about the main event for this card, and we'll get to that. But there was a lot of fun, pretty good matches on this one.
Yeah, so technically this was the first No Way Out event, kind of. It's the second No Way Out as far as shows called No Way Out, but the first one was In Your House No Way Out.
And it was No Way Out of Texas.
Oh, that's right. It was No Way Out in Texas. So this is the first solely, it's only called No Way Out pay-per-view. It takes place it's their pay-per-view right after the Rumble. However, it's from 2000. Back then they only had one pay-per-view between the Rumble and Mania. And No Way Out was it. Now they have Elimination Chamber and then Fast Break and then Mania.
Fast Lane.
Sorry, thinking of Candy, aren't I?
Yep.
Candy. That'd be good right now. Anyways, so this was kind of their show between the Rumble and Mania to help set things up. Things that we need to know going into this, there's been a feud going between Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, Mankind, Dude Love, whatever we want to call him, and Triple H.
Whatever he happens to be that week.
Right. As well as the events of the Rumble itself from 2000, it ended with The Rock clotheslining Big Show over the top rope, and they both went out together. Rock was supposed to have held on
but his feet touched.
Skinned the cat, but yeah, his feet definitely touched. So Big Show went around campaigning, hey, Rock shouldn't have won, I should have won. And he was kind of doing it like the New Day did when they originally kind of turned heels. Oh, we're nice guys, but we're jerks, and you don't really like us, and we're not really sure why you don't like us type thing.
Yeah.
They're just obnoxious, overly friendly good guys. So we have a Rock versus Big Show match. For the winner gets to go to Mania. We have a very young, early in his career, Kurt Angle facing Jericho. Yeah. Angle was the European champ. Jericho was the IC co-champ with China. I don't know if they were co-champs, but it was during that time.
I don't know if this one was when they were co-champs or not.
Yeah, it was Jericho defending the IC belt against Angle.
So, how early was this in Angle's career? Because I vaguely remember him debuting in, like, what?
I think he debuted in 99, and this is early 2000. I think he's maybe been around 6 months at most, I'm going to guess. It's very, very early in his career, but he's...
August of 98 he debuted. So still...
So a year and change.
But still very early.
Yeah, way up there.
I mean, geez, the guy still had hair.
Right, before he shaved his head in WWE, way before he had Team America. Team America? Is that there?
Yeah.
The world's greatest tag team?
Yeah. Team Angle.
Team Angle. There we go.
Yeah, he I'm pretty sure this was when he just started doing the 3 eyes, right?
Yep. Intelligence, intensity, and integrity.
Yep.
So yeah, young Kurt Angle was really impressive. So, and this is actually where we start things. Kurt Angle versus Jericho was our opening match. One thing I'm going to say about No Way Out that I miss is it had its own specific little entryway. They had a different set piece.
Yeah, it was like a little mini Hell in a Cell for the little walkway.
Right. It was kind of like the sides of it, and it had a little top to it. So it was really cool. I really miss each pay-per-view having its own set piece. It kind of made everything feel different and feel bigger. Because now the pay-per-view events just feel like a big Raw most of the time because they just have the same standard entrance.
Yeah, it's literally the exact same thing. Which, I mean, I guess I could get that from a logistics standpoint. Like, oh, this pay-per-view is coming up. Make sure that we ship everything out from the warehouse out to said event and then back and then...
Right, and I'm sure money-wise it saves a ton of money because it's got to be super expensive You're creating these giant set pieces. You're not necessarily even reusing them every year, so...
Right.
Anyways, first matchup, Angle versus Jericho, and it's about as good as you expect. It's two guys. Jericho's not young in his career. He's been around 6-7 years now, maybe. Angle, again, year and a half into the career, so...
Well, this is in 2000. Jericho was still doing his stuff in Japan before WCW, wasn't he?
Right, but he started in like 93, 94, I thought. So 2000.
Okay.
That's what I was saying, 6-7 years. So
okay.
He's been around, but he's not full veteran status. He's still kind of working some stuff out.
When you say 1993 to 2000 and then 6 to 7 years, 1993 to 2000 seems like a much bigger gap.
Doesn't it? It does. The world changed a lot in the 90s, I guess.
But yeah, this was long, curly-haired Jericho with a tiny little ponytail, either coming out of the back of his head or on top of his head. Like, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much the prime Jericho.
Right, definitely right in there. It's a little bit before his world championship run.
Yep.
It's this really weird program he was in with China where they were co-champions for a while, and then I think Jericho had it and China was backing him up, but it was just a little weird, and China didn't really add much here. And
no, because this is still kind of early with her, isn't it?
I don't remember.
She had done some stuff with DX.
Well,
but...
right at this point, DX had actually broken up. Like, not just Triple H, HBK, China DX, but then the next version with
everybody.
Yeah, X-Pac, the New Age Outlaws. They're all kind of in limbo-ish because Triple H is now allied with Stephanie McMahon. It's the Helmsley McMahon era or whatever they're calling it. X-Pac is kind of the leader of DX because he's in a program with Kane where... We'll get to that. So, yeah, DX was in a weird spot, and Triple H was off doing his thing.
So they didn't really have much. This was just before she did the thing with Eddie, right?
Right. So Eddie Eddie was still part of the Radicals, and they had just recently come in because WCW is still alive at this point.
Which, again... I had never actually seen the Radicals as a group together. A little odd, but kind of fun.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it is... They got kind of buried weirdly. I don't understand fully what was being done with them, but
it's also one of those things where out of these 4 guys, one of them is not like the other.
I mean, in which way do you mean that? Because I could pick that out about 4 different ways, and they're all kind of tragic.
Well, not tragic, but I guess career-wise tragic. You have Eddie, good.
Yup.
Dean Malenko,
good.
Chris Benoit, very good.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Perry Saturn.
Perry Saturn was good too, but he's definitely the odd one out.
When you're talking about out of the Radicals.
Yeah, he was.
Perry Saturn is the Jannetty.
Yes.
Like, let's be real.
He is the worst of the bunch, but that's a crazy bunch. That's like, I don't know who's the worst out of like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird.
It's fair.
There's going to be a worst of that bunch, but holy crap, that's a lot of talent. So that's a tough pick.
That's fair, but my only exposure to Perry Saturn before the Radicals was Mop.
Was Moppy. Yeah. That came right after the Radicals, so you're not wrong there.
So
He was definitely the odd duck out, but so fair enough. Anyway, so we're still looking at Jericho Angle. Angle ends up winning after a really weird spot where China gets hurt on the outside and the ref is too busy checking on China that she doesn't notice that Angle uses the IC belt to clock Jericho in the face when he goes for the lion salt, able to roll him up, get the 1-2-3, becomes the Eurocontinental champion.
Can we also just talk about the stupid thing that China did when she came out?
Oh,
with
the blaster?
With the fireworks cannon?
Yeah, she has a fireworks cannon that she used to come out with, which I don't get the point of that at all. It was always just some random thing she did because she's a badass and they were really trying to push her as something, I guess.
But it's a fireworks cannon. Like,
if you had a firework bazooka, you'd like it too.
I don't get me wrong, I would, but it's just awkward seeing this mountain of a woman come walking out.
Yeah, she walks out with this giant silver cannon, fires it, and then it disappears.
Yeah, like they cut away to it, like the sparkles coming down from the fireworks, and then she's just standing there without anything in her hands and walks to the ring.
Well, or worse is what they sometimes do, and this is kind of a Nia Jax trick they do. They zoom up super close to make her look more imposing and big, not showing the tech guy running up and getting the hand off of the fireworks launcher from her off camera. They're very good with their, as we've discussed in the past. WWE pros at like production type stuff. If you need to frame a shot, they're your people.
And if you need a video package.
Yeah. Let's not talk about like the super 8 billion jump cuts they make these days, but other than that, really great production values.
I also, during this match, appreciate how Jericho used to have the Walls of Jericho as the Lion Tamer.
So
like the super high angle.
He had both. He had the Lion Tamer, which is the old school, I'm going to basically put you on your neck style Boston Crab and kneel in the middle of your back, and then the Walls of Jericho, which is just the standard Boston Crab.
Yeah, I appreciate using both of them, but the Lion Tamer always just seemed like it hurt just a little bit more.
The Lion Tamer was one of my favorites. It just looked like, I don't want my neck to do that while my body's doing that. That's not fun.
Yeah.
So overall, really good match. Ending was a little wonky, but it was on par for this time WWE. It's kind of your classic quote-unquote sports entertainment finish where things just kind of fall apart a little bit and, there's an ending.
I also forgot how ugly the European belt was.
Yeah, the European belt was weird. I don't understand its history.
It looked like one of the SmackDown tag belts.
You're not wrong. We should do maybe an episode on the European Championship because it was created basically for Davey Boy Smith, who didn't get it to begin with because HBK wanted it. And then it was always just kind of like this tossed around, forgotten about prize. No one that was European ever held it.
No.
It was funny on occasion. I think a couple people got it and then pretended they were European or like suddenly adopted a British accent or something, and it was kind of funny. But
well, it was also very random when like all of a sudden Matt Hardy had it for a short time.
Yeah, it was a really weird belt, and I think this people that want more titles being around in places, this is a really good time to look towards why you shouldn't do it. They had so many titles at this point in time. They had World Heavyweight Champion, tag belts, IC, European, Hardcore, Light Heavyweight. I'm pretty sure that's all the belts they had at this time.
Yeah, because shortly after this, the Light Heavyweight goes away. And
Light Heavy merges with Cruiserweight and then goes away.
Yep. And then how long after this does the Euro title stay around?
Oh, a while. It's around for, I think, at least another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't disappear until the early to mid 2000s.
So after, that's right, because it disappears after WCW shows up.
Right. It gets merged with the I don't know belt during the Invasion storyline.
The U.S. belt.
Sure.
The WCW U.S. belt.
Wouldn't that create a new Intercontinental belt?
Yes.
If you combine Europe and U.S.?
Yes.
But they also have a IC belt.
Nope.
Okay. Anyways, so overall, really good match. Ending was a little wonky, but
It was fun.
it was a good match.
Especially-
it was Angle Jericho. How bad could it possibly ever be?
Especially, yeah, with the two guys that you're talking about. If you're thinking about them now, the guys are freaking legends now.
Right.
You go back and watch them kind of earlier in their career, it's
Still good.
it's fun.
All right, next up we had the WWF Tag Team Championship match between the Dudley Boys facing the champs, the New Age Outlaws.
Yeah, and I always, again, forget, which I probably shouldn't because I watched a lot of the Dudleys when they were in TNA. Like when they jumped ship and came over and they were doing the whole...
You mean Team 3D?
Yes, sorry. And they were doing the first time I ever saw the IWGP heavyweight tag belts, but when they were like the
They were like tag team belt collectors.
yeah, they had like 12 different tag team titles. Really good. Really good.
Yeah, they were very, very good. And so at this point, for the New Age Outlaws, they were the champs. DX was, like I said, they were kind of floundering. They were definitely becoming more aligned with the corporation, or at least Vince and Stephanie. And that whole thing was a little bit weird. We'll get to that a little bit later. They were DX was pretty solidly heel at this point for turning on Kane and just being kind of D-bags in general.
Yeah.
Bigger thing here was Billy Gunn actually had hurt his left shoulder really badly earlier on. The SmackDown before this, they tried to play it off like the Dudleys hurt him, but it was actually a legit injury, and he was going to have to go get surgery and take a lot of time off. After this, I think he was gone for 6 months.
Yeah, I didn't notice it until you pointed it out, but I jokingly was like, did he have a stroke mid-match? Because he was sitting there with his arm like curled up underneath his pec the entire time.
So if you guys go back and watch the intro, he's not moving his left arm at all the entire time.
No, like at one point he goes to like move it to take the belt off, but like puts his arm back down and uses his right arm to take the belt off.
Yeah, he can barely use his left arm, and it's really kind of awkward to watch the match. Match is pretty quick. It's just over 5 minutes. If you kind of notice, Road Dogg is taking the entire brunt of that match for the Outlaws.
Yeah, and Billy Gunn doesn't come in until like the very end. And
yeah, right near the end, they get knocked outside. Bubba gets a giant pipe from somewhere, smacks Billy in the left arm with it, kind of giving him an out on TV, and Dudley's become your new champs.
Yeah, and like I said, the Dudleys, it's always easy to forget how good they actually are, because when they only come out for random table spots.
Yeah, we're just going to come out and 3D someone through a table. You forget, like, they were actually really entertaining to watch in the ring, and they looked like they could kill people.
Well, and the other thing, too, is that they're bigger guys, but they could move.
Yeah. I mean, Devon was the smaller of the two of them, and I'm still pretty sure Devon was bigger than both the New Age Outlaws. Maybe not as tall as Billy Gunn, but heavier.
Both of them were for sure heavier, and it's funny to see them like later on in TNA when Bubba's dropped all the weight and actually looks.
Oh yeah,
like
once Bubba got fit, he was scary looking.
Well, when we saw him at ROH,
yeah.
He's still probably what 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, he must be right around my height. I'm 6'3", 6'4" He's right up there.
But when you have him standing at like, I would say right around this time during 2000, he was probably what 320.
Probably somewhere around that, higher threes. Bubba just looked it up. Bubba is 6'3", so yeah, we're about the same height.
Okay, so. Guy standing at 6'3" is probably 320, 325 during the 2000s.
Yeah.
But then he slims down.
He slimmed down to 280, which is still huge, but it was definitely a pretty frightening looking guy.
It's a little more intimidating because of how like ripped he is.
Yeah. Dudleys were, so at this point they were definitely heels, but I feel like this was pretty close to them kind of turning face because the table gimmick was tough not to love.
How can you not like somebody going through a table?
Right, exactly. And I got to be honest, of all the ways to go through a table, 3D seems like it's probably a pretty good way of going through a table.
Well, yeah, have you seen Xavier Woods go through it when they do it to him? He goes up and he turns himself onto his side and he takes it all
Over on the shoulder. Even going like straight through on your, like, taking it on your chest,
Yeah,
midsection.
I mean, if you can push out with your arms and do like you're taking a frog splash or something.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty safe, convenient way of going through a table. Like, if I ever get put through a table, I hope I get 3D through a table. That seems like the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'd rather not. They showed flashbacks of SmackDown when
Billy Gunn did the Fameasser through the table. That was a thing.
First off, I'm surprised Billy got that high for it. But secondly, that probably could have gone very poorly.
Yeah, it looked very awkward. It went off about as well as one could have hoped, but it was definitely a more awkward way of putting something through a table. They had Bubba standing on the table, bent over, which that setup is really tough to begin with. Like, it looks a little staged.
Honestly, I'm surprised
On the
Bubba
table?
didn't fall off the table.
Right. Standing on those tables is a precarious thing, especially for a 300-plus pound guy.
Right.
So, anyways, kind of a quick little match. I think we've probably talked longer than the match lasted itself, but it wasn't anything great because obviously one of the guys was hurt, but it was decent enough, and it got the titles onto the Dudleys, which would help get us to TLC at WrestleMania.
Which I feel like maybe we should do a career retrospect on the TLC match.
Ooh, that could be fun. Yeah, so this was setting the stage for TLC at Mania, which everyone knows what a historic match that was.
Yeah, and it's fun to see the evolution of, I would say, arguably 3 of the best tag teams to ever come through WWF.
Easily. I mean, they were tag team wrestling in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it's not surprising that you see the belts hot potato through the 3 of them so often, kind of like what we're seeing now with the SmackDown titles.
Yeah. They basically were doing on the main stage what SmackDown tag teams are doing today, where you have a few great standout teams that, you know, after a certain amount of time it gets a little kind of stale, but it almost doesn't because they're all so good.
Right.
Where you're like,
In the 2000s, you have Dudley's Team Extreme, the Hardy Boys, and Edge and Christian.
yep.
And then compared to now, you have the Bar, the Usos,
And
and the New Day. Which, if I had to pick one of those sets of teams, it would be very hard for me to do that.
Yeah, you have kind of the super, like, very talented but super charismatic and entertaining, like, ENC New Day.
Yeah.
You have, like, the team where they weren't originally popular, but they just kind of have such a kind of, they're the big guys and they just kind of come and beat people up, and eventually that becomes entertaining with the Dudleys and the Bar. And then you have, like, we're just super talented and charismatic Usos, Team Hardy.
And actual brothers.
And actual brothers. So
Yeah, I would have a very hard time picking between those 2 sets of teams because, I mean, what TLC is to 3D or the Dudleys and that whole squad in the 2000s, these Hell in a Cell matches that New Day and the Usos had.
yeah.
Like I said, it's hard to pick between the set.
Yeah, it's 3 sets of super talented, great workers that always seem to be able to keep one-upping themselves, even though they're kind of being put kind of into the same rotations. They keep making it fresh, and it's weird because, like I said, on one hand, you're kind of like, all right, I've seen these, but on the other hand, it's like, well, they're so damn good, I could keep kind of watching this until they get tired of doing this. So.
Right. And it's also one of those, what could they possibly do next?
Yeah.
And then when they do it, you're like, holy shit, what could they possibly
Right,
do
I can't
next?
believe they managed to one up that last time. So, all right, moving on from this. Next up, we have one of our not great matches on this card.
Which one was this one?
This was Mark Henry versus Viscera.
I did not watch this one.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything. It was just under 4 minutes long. It was because Viscera had made moves on or attacked Mae Young.
He did the splash to her, and she lost the baby.
No, she didn't lose the baby. She had the hand.
No, they said she lost the baby.
I don't think so. I think that whole thing was... This was still in that prime hand... Give May a hand thing. No, we're moving on. We're done here. All right. So,
next match.
Speaking of Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys, we have a match between Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys to determine who the number one contender for the WWF tag titles are going to be at Mania.
Yeah, and like I said, I liked Edge and Christian separately. Because I wasn't watching a whole lot during the early 2000s and the late 90s.
You were still a youngin' at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean 2000 I was 9. So
I was 20. What the hell are we doing here? All right.
Hey, so I wasn't watching a whole lot then. It's been mostly me now going back and watching. But I always liked Edge and Christian when they were separate doing their thing. Like Christian was phenomenal when he was in TNA.
Yep.
Even
Edge, obviously, Rated R Superstar,
right.
That whole thing, La Familia.
And when Christian came back was at WCW and came up
ECW.
Or ECW, that's right. And came up to do the World Heavyweight title after Edge had retired. Like, they were phenomenal on their own.
Yep.
But to see them doing the goofy shit together,
so
where it's essentially the E&C show, but in a wrestling ring.
So they were still technically good guys at this point. They were weeks away from full-blown hysterical D-bag
5-second pose.
5-second pose. Yeah, they were just on the cusp from being classic heel ENC and from greatness. I was a huge ENC fan back then, still am today. They were so hysterical.
And it's one of those where it's easy to forget how good they were because of the runs they had as singles competitors.
Right. And because they ended up becoming known for like their ladder matches and stuff. But you forget how good they are at their normal matches, which is really, really good.
Yeah, and it's always funny to hear like both of them on their podcast talk about what they're nitpicking in the matches as they're going back and reviewing them, because you see them doing that stuff that they're nitpicking, like Christian saying that he doesn't like when somebody doesn't work the ring apron in a tag match.
Mm-hmm.
Christian's working the ring apron.
Yep.
Like it's just funny to kind of see that stuff happen.
Yeah, he doesn't want you to sit there and watch the match, be like an active participant while you're on the apron. And so this match also was playing into the history between the Hardys and ENC, where obviously they had come across each other as the Brood and then the New Brood, and then the Terry Invitational Tournament, where... So at this point in time, Matt and Hardy... Or Matt and Jeff.
Matt and Hardy.
Yes, Matt and Hardy. Matt and Jeff were being managed by Terry Runnels. They had won the tournament to get her managerial services. About a month before this, the Dudleys were on their spree of putting women through tables, which that's a thing now, looking back, I suppose. They had put Terry through a table. She'd been missing for a month. She came back, but she had hired the APA to watch her back while the match was going on.
That's another one. We should look at the APA at some point.
We've definitely talked about Ron Simmons a bunch as part of Doom and his WCW past.
Yeah, I just don't like JBL because he was really good at being a heel in the later 2000s.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he was good at being a heel as much as he was not a great human being. A lot of the stuff you hear about him as far as like locker room behavior and trying to
the guy's a
gatekeep
dick.
Yeah.
But either way, it was kind of random because the entire match, you have Edge and Christian and the Hardys going at each other. Terry's on the opposite side of the ring from the entrance ramp. She's over by the announcer tables, and the APA come out and they literally stand at the announcing or at the entrance ramp.
Yeah, to make
the
sure no
entire
one can
time.
go down.
to me, it kind of took away a little bit from the match that we had going on because they would just randomly cut over to the APA just standing there with their arms crossed.
Yeah, looking like, we don't want no one coming down here.
Essentially like bouncers at a club.
Yeah, exactly.
It just every time they did it or every time they cut over to Terry, because I get that at this time they were doing the whole like valet thing.
Puppies.
Like
Ugh.
anytime Jerry Lawler would like scream about that,
It was so awful. It took so much away from the show.
yeah, and it
Hey,
didn't-
look, boobs.
like
Get it, everyone? We're guys. We like boob. It's like, ugh, stop it.
thanks 12-year-old Jerry Lawler.
Right, exactly. It was just juvenile, and it was like it could be there without having to just beat you over the face with it. It's too much.
You have this phenomenal match that's happening, and you have two different things that are causing you to kind of back out of the match.
Right. These two teams in the ring are so talented. You don't need any distractions. You don't need any outside stuff for this.
Like, I would have loved to have been at a house show during all of this
Yeah.
to just see those two teams wrestle.
So, again, kind of going back to our first match of the evening, we have a bit of a sports entertainment finish where Jeff goes up for a move, and Terry decides that she's done being the manager for the Hardy Boys, shoves Jeff off the top rope to the floor. Matt comes over, is like, what the F is going on over here? Christian hits the unprettier.
After she slaps him.
Oh, yeah. Terry slaps Matt. Christian gets the unprettier. ENC are going to Mania. Or as we would later find out, all of them are going to Mania.
Yeah. Shocking that it wasn't just one of the teams because, why not have all three of them in
Right.
a match?
So after the match, we have Matt getting really upset at Terry again, and the APA decides, whoop, time to step in and do our jobs.
Yep, because she's paying us to watch your back.
And Ron Simmons and Jeff Hardy have some unfortunate miscommunication where Ron Simmons is going for the Dominator, which is, gut wrench, pick the guy up onto your shoulder and then flip him back down in like a body slam type thing, except on their face. I don't know if Jeff thought he was going for some sort of power bomb or what, but Jeff gets dropped straight on his neck and head.
I mean, I feel like that's essentially what happens throughout all of the 2000s for Jeff.
Jeff getting dropped on his head, yeah, you're not wrong.
If it's not falling off of a ladder, if it's not going through a table, somebody dropping him, Jeff is going. If Jeff doesn't land on his head or neck, it's been a good match.
Yeah. So this whole match was actually supposed to set up Edge and Christian separating, as far as I'm aware.
Because you could tell in the kind of backstage thing.
Yeah, they were kind of setting up Edge to be the face and Christian to be the heel in the whole thing, and them kind of going, not really on the same page here. So what would happen on SmackDown the following week is they would put Terry with them, and they would instantly go, nah, I don't think we need you. You can go away. So they straight up kick Terry to the curb, and thankfully go on to become the ENC of the 5-second pose and have an amazing couple-year run as tag champs. Well,
Yeah.
not solely 1 year as tag champs, but they have like 5 reigns, I think.
Yeah, it was. Any time I see any clips of the 5-second poses, it warms my heart.
I actually have a photograph at home somewhere of a 5-second pose when they did a Raw here in Rochester. I had flash photography.
You need to somehow get that on the computer so we could share that with the historians.
All right, sounds good. I will go see if I can dig that up. All right. Anyways, coming up next after that was, I think, unfortunately, another filler match.
Wasn't this the Too Cool?
No, that's still a little ways away.
Oh boy.
It was Taz versus Big Boss Man, accompanied by Prince Albert. It was not a real match. It was Taz showing. It was Boss Man and Albert beating the crap out of Taz. Taz kept getting back up to show how tough he was. Boss Man breaks a nightstick over Taz's head. Taz keeps getting up.
Which is upsetting because Boss Man could work.
Yeah.
He wasn't
the best, but he was a good, bigger guy.
He was a guy that if you needed a big body in there to kind of do some stuff, he could do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like a regular match between Taz and Bossman would be pretty solid.
Right, and I think that would definitely show off how good Taz is, because he was a smaller guy, Bossman's a bigger guy.
But Taz could throw the bigger guys around like they were nothing.
Exactly. You let Taz throw Bossman around, so hey, cool, here's our big guy that doesn't... We understand he's a bigger guy, but he's not a giant like, say, Undertaker or Kane.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to Taz and Bam Bam in ECW.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big guy that can take a whooping and show off how good this smaller guy is by taking down the bigger guy, yada, yada, yada.
And to be honest, I'm a huge fan of Taz's intro music.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why.
Because you like Roman Reigns' music.
I don't like Roman Reigns'
It's the
music.
same music.
I know it is, but the heartbeat at the beginning thing just it
makes it for you.
yeah.
All right. All right. So less said about this match, I suppose, the better.
Yeah.
Next up, we have X-Pac. X-Pac?
Six packs.
6 packs.
1, 2, 3 kid.
Yeah. We have the kid with Tori defeating Kane, accompanied by Paul Bearer in a no-holds-barred match.
Which
It was a fine little match. It wasn't the end of their feud. It was continuing it, and it was fine.
yeah. I mean,
It was good. They fought. They used the set piece, the cage that was out like near the entry area. X-Pac got thrown into it. Kane got thrown into it. They battled through the crowd a bit. It was nothing amazing, but it was fine, and it continued the feud, which is all. It was Kane beating the crap out of X-Pac, and then X-Pac picking up a lucky win near the end.
I almost feel like they were trying to recreate the feeling of 1, 2, 3 kid and Razor.
Maybe, except kind of flipping the roles.
Yeah.
Possibly. This really was Kane's first run as a face, so.
Which, to be honest, face Kane during the 2000s was always pretty solid.
Yeah. I think this was also the first time him changing his ring gear up a little bit. It was the more black-colored gear instead of the more red-colored gear, but...
Yeah, and eventually later on when he changes into the almost kind of mesh,
Yeah.
that's kind of when he started... He really started to do more as a singles competitor.
Yeah, and it was weird with Paul Bearer being a face, because that doesn't happen very often, but...
That happened twice in his career?
Yeah. This was also... The biggest thing here is I think this was also near Kane beginning to actually speak for himself. I know I know when he was paired with X-Pac was when he had a voice box and said or something dumb, but it was him starting to venture out more on his own and getting away from having to have a mouthpiece all the time, and that was fine.
So, now, is this before Taker turns into the... is this when Taker's gone and then comes back as the American Badass?
Yes, I believe that is correct. He was gone at this time and returns in a little bit as the American Fat Ass.
Yeah, before he gets fit again?
Before he gets back into shape, yeah. This was right after the corporate ministry stuff that had all fallen apart.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this was after Stephanie got crucified, Austin was crucified, and that whole higher power, it was me all along, Austin. Yeah, that was a weird hiccup in the road here.
Yeah. Probably not one of those things that WWF wants to have remembered.
I definitely remember that. I think shortly after this must be when Undertaker comes back and we have Brothers of Destruction. Maybe. Or do they not do that?
They don't do that, as far as I remember, up until the Invasion.
Well, but the Invasion starts the year after this. It starts in 2001.
Oh, that's right. It is 2000.
Yeah, so Biker Taker must be coming up soon, and then we go into Brothers.
He aligns with Face Kane.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
See, it's all starting to come together.
Yep. We're starting to paint a picture here for everyone, and eventually it'll all make sense, and everyone will have their wrestling history timelines down forever. All right. After X-Pac Kane, we have Too Cool being Grandmaster Sexay, Rikishi, and Scotty 2 Hotty versus the Radicals, Benoit, Malenko, and Saturn, with Eddie Guerrero was hurt at the time.
So I just remember playing the old Raw vs. SmackDown games, or at this point it wasn't Raw vs. SmackDown.
No, it was just the SmackDown games.
It was
Know
Your Role and One of the other ones.
Shut your mouth.
Um,
Yeah.
I always just remember playing as Too Cool, just so that I could get Scotty Too Hottie to do the worm.
Oh, you're the worst human on earth. Oh,
What?
Too Cool was awful.
Again, I was 9.
You're the worst 9-year-old.
To 9-year-olds, somebody doing the worm and then dropping an elbow on somebody was entertaining.
Ugh. So this was culminating a feud where the Radicals had injured Rikishi's ankle, and this was Rikishi's big payback.
You mean the Sultan?
The Sultan. There was a couple other awful gimmicks he had. Was Rikishi fought? Okay, the cat just knocked a screwdriver off a shelf and scared the shit out of us. Anyways, yeah, Rikishi's awful gimmicks know few bounds. So at this point, it was really weird that you have the Radicals coming in as like this big force coming from WCW basically, and then they lose to Too Cool and Rikishi.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I get it from Vince's perspective. Like,
That it is standard Vince booking 101. These are the big guys from the other place. Bury them.
yeah.
Gotta do your time, pal.
Which, again, you have Malenko, you have Eddie, you have Benoit, and you have Perry Saturn. I mean, as of right now, only one of them is in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Another one will probably be in the Hall of Fame sooner or later.
I mean, but say Eddie's in the Hall of Fame.
Malenko will be in there.
Malenko
I'm sure,
will be. He's
sooner or
currently a
later.
road agent and putting together some amazing matches for folks.
Yeah. Benoit will be written out of history.
Benoit is never to be mentioned again by WWF, which don't blame him whatsoever.
Fair.
People talk about, oh, well, he should be in for his work. You can't separate the
No.
human and the worker. Dude killed his wife, his child, and himself. Sorry. No. Like, we have to have some standards here.
Yeah. No, he'll be erased from history.
Unfortunate, but I'm fine with it.
And Perry Saturn, again,
Yeah, he unfortunately had a very... He was the Genetti of the group, and it's unfortunate, but... Yeah.
there's always a Genetti.
Yeah. Well, not always. Edge and Christian didn't really have a Genetti. They had a Shawn and a lesser Shawn, but never really a Genetti.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the Hardys had a Genetti.
The Hardys had a Genetti for a little while.
Matt was the Genetti.
Matt was the Genetti, and then he wasn't.
And then he became the Genetti again.
But then not really.
And then the Dudleys had Devon was the Genetti.
Devon was the Genetti.
Speaking of which, did you see Matt came back?
Yes, Matt is back with Jeff.
And he's super trim.
Yeah, I heard he got in good shape.
Dude's ripped now. Like, he looks better now than he did during this 2000s match.
Yeah, the Hardys have never been in crazy shape. They've always been like smaller guys, but never like fit guys.
Yeah, he's at his peak right now. He's probably sitting at about where Edge was during his world title reign.
All right, so moving on past the Radicals thing, we had the match to determine the number one contender for WrestleMania 2000, Big Show versus The Rock.
So I will say I did not see this one.
You didn't really miss much. It wasn't great. It ends with the Big Show beating The Rock after Shane interferes and cracks The Rock with a chair.
I can only imagine that a match between those two could kind of get stale just from the Big Show side.
Big Show was not great at this point in time.
Because he wasn't the big swole. He wasn't
No.
in shape. He looked like he was always tired when he was in the ring.
It was a weird point, and unfortunately, this was the WrestleMania where the main event match ends up getting really screwy because of the McMahons. So the main event, and it's going to spoil the final match of this card, but the main event of WrestleMania 2000 was Vince McMahon in the corner of The Rock, Shane McMahon in the corner of Big Show, Linda McMahon in the corner of Cactus Jack, and Stephanie McMahon in the corner of the champion Triple H.
Huh?
So WrestleMania main events that are like triple threats usually aren't great. And the four-way with a McMahon in each corner, was kind of noted as a bit of a cluster.
Which WrestleMania was this?
WrestleMania 2000, aka WrestleMania 16.
Yeah.
So it was a thing that happened. Moving on, so we'll tie it into the next match here. The final match of the evening was Hell in a Cell, Triple H versus Cactus Jack.
This is the one that I mentioned earlier that pretty much the pay-per-view only gets remembered for what happens during this match.
Right. And the big stipulation here was not only was it for Triple H's WWF Championship, if Cactus Jack loses, he has to retire, which, spoilers from what I just said, he still shows up at Mania. He still has a few matches here and there. But this was largely his retirement from in-ring action.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what a way to go out, too, because everybody knows Mick Foley is the guy who got tossed off the cage and fell through the cage.
Yeah.
Well, he fell through the cage again.
So they did something with this that I really disliked to start the match. They started with the cell in the air, and then once everyone got into the ring, they lowered it. And they had to do that because Triple H didn't want to go outside. The kind of storyline was Triple H wanted to keep it in the cell. He didn't want to get thrown off the cell. He didn't want to get involved with all of that crazy stuff that Cactus Jack does. He just wants a match in the ring, beat this guy because he's the cerebral assassin. He knows he's a better wrestler than Cactus Jack. He doesn't want to deal with this psychopath outside of the ring where things get crazy.
Yeah. Well, spoiler, doesn't go the way he wants it.
Yeah. So they lower the cage, and it turns out instead of just having one chain and padlock on the cell door, there's like 24, and there's no way the door can be opened, which totally fine and leads to we find a different way out of the cage because it had been becoming a little stale with the Hell in a Cell where, we managed to get the cage door open. Now we're fighting on top of the cage, yada, yada, yada. We end up having Triple H and Cactus Jack throw each other into a segment of the cage and break it open and kind of... They did a really good job where it didn't look like it was supposed to be open, but it obviously was.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of the first times that I had been exposed to the Hell in a Cell other than Taker throwing Mick Foley off because everybody has seen that.
Yeah, which really wasn't much of a match. It was a few big spots.
Yeah. Like you said, they did a really good job of making it seem like, oh God, they just blew through the side of that thing. What the hell?
Right, because I think it starts with Triple H throwing it starts with Cactus Jack throwing the steps at Triple H while he's up against the cage. Triple H moves at the last second, and the steps break the cage open a bit. Cactus Jack sees and goes, I have an idea, and then runs and dives into the same weakened thing, breaks it open more. The cage really wasn't behaving. It did not really want to let people out. It would flap open, but the flap was not easy to get in and out of, which was kind of cool. So it definitely made it look more of a thing. Eventually they get out. They start climbing up the cage. Cactus Jack gets halfway up to the part where he's holding onto the top and gets knocked off through an announce table. Triple H ends up standing on the top. At some point they introduced the barbed wire 2x4.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this is one of the handful of times Triple H gets, either blades or gets cut. And
he bladed. He got flung into the cage before they broke out of it. He got catapulted into the cage and broke himself open.
And freaking bleeds like a stuck pig.
Yeah, he does. So
as per usual for Triple H.
Right. We're outside of the cage. We have Cactus Jack go through a table from about most of the way up the cage, about hanging off the top of the cage. Triple H ends up climbing onto the top of the cage. Cactus Jack gets back up from going through the table, tries to throw a chair on top of the cage, tries that 2 or 3 times. It doesn't work out well for him. Eventually just grabs the barbed wire bat and follows Triple H up. They battle around on top of that cage for a while, and they almost break through another corner of the cage unintentionally.
Yeah.
That's one of the scarier looking spots. It's exactly it's the far corner from where they climbed up on, and Mick gets slammed or something, but the corner of the cage gives way and he almost falls through the top, like slides through that corner to to the
directly
floor.
to the either the floor or the ring post.
Right, which bad news there. Anyways, they fight around a little bit more. They both take a few shots with the barbed wire bat, or barbed wire 2x4. Mick Foley lights the barbed wire 2x4 on fire and cracks Triple H with it, which we have a flaming 2x4 covered in barbed wire on top of a Hell in a Cell. It's a great visual. Eventually, Cactus Jack goes to pile drive Triple H onto the 2x4 on top of the cage, gets the pile driver reversed and gets back body dropped onto the top of the cell, which then gives way. Cactus Jack falls from the top of the cell onto the ring again.
Now, this is the one where he actually ends up falling through the ring, correct?
Right. This is the one where it was intentional, and he actually makes a giant dent into the ring, which the ring was gimmicked and made to take that impact to help that fall.
Yeah, they kind of ripped the canvas, and he went kind of straight through and ended up underneath the ring almost.
He ended up in a big divot in the ring. It wasn't all the way to the floor, but it was like at least halfway through the ring. Triple H tries to figure out how to climb down and eventually figures out his way into the ring and just kind of standing over him like, all right, we done here? Cactus starts stirring and starts climbing and crawling after Triple H, who's just freaked out at this point, hits him with a pedigree, ends it.
Which I liked how they did this where it took, like at the end of the match, it was a pedigree, and that was it.
Yeah, well, the guy had gone off the side of the cage, through the cage,
But
then finally some finality.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, where around this time they had protected finishers.
Ish. This was a weird
a lot less so than now, or a lot more so than now, I should say.
Yeah, like your main event guys, you'd kick out of one finisher, maybe. The bigger thing they're usually like stealing each other's finishers. That was kind of a cool thing they were doing at this time.
Yeah, but with Triple H, if you kicked out of one pedigree, you weren't kicking out of a second one.
Right, and it was kind of cool that they actually hit this move and ended it. So
whereas now you have Brock Lesnar who's throwing 5, 6, 7 F5s to different people in a match, and it's like, what the hell's the point of a finisher then?
Right. It's like after a certain point, it just looks like this move isn't effective. It isn't, holy crap, Roman is so tough. He kicked out of 5 F5s. It's, what are we doing here?
Maybe Brock should be doing something other than an F5.
Right. Maybe Brock needs a new You're Dead move.
Yeah.
That's what we should have had. Kicking out of 1 F5 is impressive enough. We didn't need to go for 7 or whatever it was.
Yeah. So, again, overall, people forget about this pay-per-view other than Mick Foley getting thrown through the cage.
Right. There were a lot of really good matches. Angle Jericho was very good. Rock Big Show wasn't great, but it was better than average.
The Hardys and Edge and Christian.
Yep, that was really, really good. Even the Radicals match was pretty decent. Wasn't a huge fan of it, but it was decent. The only 2 real stinker matches were Mark Henry Viscera and Taz and Boss Man.
Yeah. But, I mean, again, that happens at one point, at least on every pay-per-view.
Yeah, you got to kind of have your filler matches. So, yep, this was our show in between Rumble and Mania, so maybe we'll pick it back up come Mania time. We got to figure out what Mania we're going to do. We got to do something big for that season.
Well, yeah, because it's Mania season.
Yeah, so we'll figure out something big for Mania season, and not quite sure what we're going to do next week yet, but I'm sure we'll have something else fun. Maybe we'll go back, look at some WCW stuff. Maybe we'll find some TNA or something. Who knows?
Oh, TNA might be fun.
But all right, so anything else before we sign off?
Nope, because we did our plugs already.
All right, we're history.